Hello everyone! So, for April, I thought I'd do something that was simultaneously interesting, and at first I thought relatively easy. See, after the Assassin's Creed video last month, I figured that it couldn't be too hard to just add a little bit of polish to a stream of consciousness style game, and maybe, you know, collect a slightly better production of a game that I like to play. You see, like that right there? That's an example of what not scripting it and not thinking things through will do for your ability to record audio. So I picked a game I really liked, which is this, Yoshi's Island. Now, for anyone not familiar, Yoshi's Island is a 1995 video game made by Big Papa Nintendo. Developed. Oh, let's see how many of these I can do without double checking. But if I remember the names, the producer was the infamously superior Shigeru Miyamoto, who, like, you know, saying he was involved in a Nintendo property in the mid-90s is not exactly any kind of revolutionary information. The music, the absolutely fantastic music for this game, was by a guy called Koji Kondo, who I understand is quite good at this video game music thing, but for the life of me, I can't remember anything else he's done in particular. And I'm also not in a position to readily grab, like, you know, normally what I do when I don't know a thing is I grab a Google window and I look it up, because that's one of the, I hope, good habits university has given me. But not being aware of that, I just have to say that Koji Kondo appears to be pretty bloody good at making video game music, a fact that I'm sure is not lost on anyone. The director, sorry, the main brain behind the game was Shigeru Miyamoto, but that doesn't give a very specific vision of what he did, whereas we know that some of the other voices, some of the other people involved in this game included, Takeshi Tezuka, I think? See, I took notes, because I'm that kind of person. I took notes ahead of time to make sure that I could give you the basics on this game, about which really aren't necessary, but still. And I'm trying to read my notes without putting down the controller or stopping playing, which is, as you can tell, just going swimmingly. The other names include Toshidaka Nakage, Shigefumi Hino, and Hideki Kino. And hopefully I didn't mangle any of those too badly, either when I wrote them down or when I pronounced them. But, like, really, it's not that necessary, is it? This game is from Nintendo. It is pure, uncut Nintendo blue sky stuff. Telling you that it came from anywhere in particular is a bit like telling you it came from the Pixies. Like, no one's really going, well, speaking out against the, you know, crediting wrong when dealing with the auteur genius of uh-oh, that was a trap! Speaking out against the auteur genius of some of these, wonderful and mighty minds at Nintendo. Like, they're really good at their job, but it's not like, you know, I don't think they care that much. Oh, nice. Anyway, so this is a Nintendo game in the Super Mario family of games. You know the type of game if you're at all familiar with video games. For a very long period of time here, this is kind of what a video game just was. You thought of a video game as being this kind of thing, where you played some kind of weird creature in some kind of weird world, and as a direct result of that, you got, you know, some kind of stuff happen. Inevitably, you were on a quest to rescue a thing, or to not rescue a thing. You're... Ooh, nice. So in this case, you're playing the Yoshis that hang around with Mario. And... Uh-oh. There we go. Oh, but I get another chance? Okay, cool. There we go. Alright, so you're playing a Yoshi who has found a baby Mario. This is a flashback story, a sort of an origin story for Mario. See, a stork was flying with the Mario and Luigi twins. I almost call them the Mario twins, which is, you know, probably the most reasonable interpretation of their actual identities, but it also feels like kind of a jerk move. Also, I think that implies that Mario's name is Mario, which is also, again, not wrong, but certainly a little weird. Anyway. Ew, big-o. Anyway. Yoshi, the Yoshis found baby Mario, and they found a map, and they found information that suggested that there was a baby Luigi who had been captured by Bowser's Koopalings. You know, good classic, fun, pulpy adventure stuff. Like, there's our heroic little dinosaur friend, and they want to help deliver the babby home, and everything will be fine when they do that. So it's kind of a rescue adventure story with a bit. So I'm after trying to find Luigi so I can return both the babies home, whereas the Koopalings are after me because they want to try and get their hands on baby Mario, who I guess at this point is like some kind of prophesized chosen one. In that there's actually a reason for us to believe that they had some insight into the idea that at some point in the future Mario would be a threat, which is pretty effing weird when you think about it. Uh-oh. Well, I'm just gonna wait here for a moment until this is recharged, because I'm kind of stuck here now. Okay, cool. Alright. Get out of there, baby Mario. Cool. Get safe. Fly, you fool! Anyway. Oh, dinger. Whew! Okay, so you see that number in the corner? That is my countdown timer. Every time baby Mario gets away from me, I have that many seconds to go and recover baby Mario. Doing so prevents him from being captured by the forces of the Koopalings, under the oversight of not Bowser but Kamek, who I think is the name. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not actually much of a Mario scholar. Oh bugger. Alright, cool. I'll sod it. Okay. Anyway. Oh, nuts. That's all that was in there? Anyway. So, the game is a backstory to the Mario games. It's an explanation for the beginning of the relationship between Mario and Yoshi, during which it seems that Yoshi just, out of the goodness of his heart, well, the Yoshis, plural, out of the goodness of their hearts, plural, decided to come out and, you know, rescue a baby, showing that they are good heroic examples and definitely are friends worth honoring. I love this game. I'm sorry, so much of this is just going to be taken up by me talking about how much I just really like this game and how happy it makes me. Now, it's got a lot of stuff that kind of, like, most people, I suspect, know Yoshi most thoroughly from Smash Brothers. Like, I don't think that's an unreasonable guess. And a lot of the things that Yoshi can do in Smash Brothers kind of got codified in this game, because Yoshi's first appearance in, oh goodness me, what's it called? Yoshi's first appearance in Super Mario Brothers, he kind of couldn't do much of what we consider to be, like, normal Yoshi things. I mean, it wasn't until here that we got things like flutters, where you can, you know, do this and hold it in the air for a little bit, with his little tiny useless arms, which, you know, you gotta wonder, why? Why can he do that at all? It's such an odd ability, for a baby dinosaur to have. Oh no! Okay. I mean, you know, now it is more widespread and commonly known that dinosaurs are the predecessors of birds and therefore had feathers. It's a little less weird, but it's still a little weird, right? Come on over. I want to bounce on your head. La Feu Rouge. Okay. There we go. Now, I'm trying to remember how you get in that kind of thing. I guess I shall find out another time. Anyway. Ooh, a door. Cool. And coins. The game's also a bit of a forefather, a forebear of the collect-em-up genre that you might recognize as games like Banjo-Kazooie. Like, this is 1995. This is not actually that far away from the dawn of Banjo-Kazooie. But it is still a bit before that kind of game, where there's a collect-em-up aspect. You don't need to collect all these things in a level, but there are things in a level, and you can collect them. Which is, you know, it's a compelling idea. Like, you know, collecting things is cool. The way Yoshi's Island splits up its collect-em-ups is between three major categories. You have your red coins, of which there are 20 in each level. You have yellow stars, which I believe go into cereal. And you have 5 happy flowers. The happy flowers are a very simple, big, obvious object. You tap a flower, and if you get 5 of them, it gives you an extra life. It's that type of game. It is a game with extra lives, and you know, you might find that you need them. I don't know how. I don't know how this game plays for someone who hasn't been playing it pretty much non-stop since 1990. Well, actually, no, not since like 1998, I guess. But I played this game emulated. Anyway, oh dear, oh no! Gonna get kicked back to the start of the swimming track. Okay, we'll try again. This collect-em-up aspect is kind of neat and subtle in the way it changes the levels. In that, if you want, this game is a relatively easy little game. It's not super challenging to get through the levels. What's difficult is getting through the game quickly and getting all the collect-em-ups, because a lot of them are deliberately positioned to be out of the way or outright hidden. There's a certain degree of player mendacity involved there. And that... Oops-a-daisy. Oh dear. Here we go again. I think I'm going to go all the way back to the start again. That sucks. Alright. The yellow stars are actually something you can generate. If you can ricochet eggs off things a number of times and then kill something with them, you do have the ability to just generate a number of stars. And you get stars in a whole bunch of different chunks because they're kind of a bit like a hit point resource. If you have enough of them, well, you can only ever have 30 of them, but having them makes the rest of the game a little easier. Oh, I'm not good at piloting submarines. I think it's... Oh, I know why I'm not good at piloting submarines. I can't do diagonals. So I've got to do straight up and straight across if I want to do that. We're doing alright there. Oh no! Terrible, terrible. Anyway, so the third type of thing is the red coins. And red coins are notable because... Oh, this is definitely going wrong. The red coins are notable because they hide in another type of collectible, the other non-red coins. There. Okay. The presence of the non-red coins means that there's a collection aspect you're already going to be engaging with. Oh dear. Can we do it? Can we do it? Yeah, there we go. And now I have to hope I can get the rest of the way. Hey, alright, cool. The collection aspect is just a thing that lets you fill out a number, and there are levels that unlock at the end of each stage, which give you, you know, just some extra interesting gameplay stuff if you're into that. Hello, that's weird. Why didn't I? There we go. You've really got to do a little bit of exploring to find. Oop, that was bad. You've really got to do a little bit of exploring to find the red coins. Sometimes you've got to do a little bit of exploring to find... Flipperty gibbet! Doing quite poorly here. Get back here, Bab. Okay. You got to do a little bit of exploring to find hearts and coins and all this other stuff. It is a good, solid player motivation. It drives you to try and find out all this other stuff that's going on in the game, and I like that. It actually ties into a good lesson in game design and play design for me, where a lot of what I know about games I had to learn. Like, I don't know where anyone gets the impression that there is a single fundamental correct method for game design. There are like useful tools, and I know that I've used the term good design, but that's not a hard truth. It's usually a little more term of art than a term of craft, in my opinion. Anyway, the idea of design as practiced is something that I had to like look into and learn. And one of the ways I learned it was through this game. Because I, initially, this might not surprise you, but I was a pretty, awful teenage boy. And indeed, I was a pretty awful post-adolescent boy. I had a very weird upbringing that meant I didn't get a lot of social interaction, and that meant that what social interaction I did get wound up being derived from the internet. Generally, a whole world of unpleasantness was involved in all stages of this stuff. It was not a good time for anyone. But it also meant that there was a period of my life where games were, how I thought of myself as a person. I had a very strong... Wait, get back here! Oi! Get back! Jerk. Where was I? Games were a very big part of how I conceived of myself as having personhood. Which, you should know, that's not good. That's not a good thing to do. That's not a good thing to be. A person who is defined by being a player of games is usually some form of a knob. Anyway, this perspective on games meant that I often thought of the way as I played games as correct, and everyone else who played games played them wrong. And I was just smart enough to try and be able to make the case about how, well, if you do things that way, you're doing it wrong because X. I was, to put no finer point on it, a jerk. This is an awful way to be, and it's a dead set warning sign as far as your own personality goes. If you have a hard time grasping how people do things differently or why they do things differently, you're probably not very empathic, and that's a thing worth studying. Like, even if you don't naturally have empathy, look into ways that you can empathize with other people, because that's important. It's very important if you want to make games, because how people might feel or how things are going to make them feel is a big part of designing a game well. Anyway, so I was not a big smart boy when it came to games. But I was good at sounding like I knew what I was talking about, and that resulted in kind of a pushy jerk. At the time, I was dating a girl. You might know her as Fox. You might not, it doesn't really matter. But at one point, she fell quite ill. Not like actually go to the hospital ill, but on a personal level, can't get out of bed, feel awful all the time, going to sleep now, kind of ill. So, a sort of illness that, do I need to go back there? No, I don't. Cool. a sort of illness that definitely meant that someone wanted to take care of her, and I did. So I came around, and you know, in as much as my inexpert little self could, I did things to try and make life easier for her. I made her food, and I got her drinks, because she was laid up in bed. Thinking back on this whole story, it's actually kind of weird to me to realize at the time just how much effort and work I put into those things, of like just basically being nice to someone, which I only did because at the time I really fancied this girl. And like, the great trick of my life was realizing that being nice to everyone is just good to do, and you don't need a special good reason to do it. Oop. Oh no! I've ruined it. Come back in with more eggs. Anyway, the thing is, Fox as a game player was very different to so-called self-styled alpha gamer me. I cared about getting to the ends of games because I wanted to see how the story ended and I want to see how the game's finished. And it turns out that if you actually live your life like that and play games like that, you're going to spend most of your time disappointed by games, because lots of games have just the worst, most dreadful endings. Like, genuinely embarrassing for the medium, kind of like, oh, that's sad, because most game endings are the last thing that they bother to make, and they aren't really planning for it. They're more focused on getting there. Anyway. But Fox really liked 100% completion. Fox is that kind of person. Fox likes things that are finished. She likes being able to say this is done. And so I played through the whole game 100% in front of her. I was like, "Oh, is that good? Is that nice? Did you like that?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's really cool. But I wish you'd gone back and like gotten everything." And like at the time, I had this genuinely difficult moment of like, "But I finished it. Like, why would I go back and that's weird. Why would anyone care?" And obviously, that's where the lesson comes in. Like, hang on, no, she cared. She told me she cared. All I have to do is listen to her, and right there, I'm being given the answer I want. Why would anyone care? Well, the why of people caring isn't as important as the fact that they care. And so, I, in a long-standing quest to make her happy, which has not ended and continues on a daily basis, I went and I did what I could to finish the game at 100%, and I got everything, and I found everything, and she suggests, while she's watching from her bed and going, "Oh, well, try this, and maybe there's a flower in there and whatnot," and put together a whole thing about that, and it was super interesting and really lovely and good. And it was a valuable lesson in empathizing with the way people choose to do things, without making it about me, because that's the other thing. A lot of the time, gamer mindset stuff is, how can I make this about who I am and how it matters to me? And that's just boring turd human stuff to do. Anyway, so that's I hope that's a little sweet story that makes you happy. Now, how's this for a hard say? So this game is also one of my favorites because it's forgotten in a lot of like the great Mario discourse. All right, so bear with me here. It is a commonly held, almost okay, it is actually genuinely hacky, and I find it really boring. But talking about Mario as a thing is like one of the ways in which video game discourse goes. Like, treating the Mario universe like it's a serious place, like the kind of people who do statistical analytics on the breakdowns of the population of New Donk City or whatnot, or people who try to uncover the secret meaning behind in a Mario game. And I can understand it. Mario is a very accessible thing. Lots of people have played it. Lots of people have opinions about it. And because it's such a big canon of a game, you're often left with a lot of different stuff that can come up, and lots of different ideas that are very funny and in some cases very silly that you can bring out, and it's great. It's a great source. It's a good place to go for silly stuff. I like it. But one of the things that we tend to do when we have these discussions, like one of the go-to things, is a deliberate form of, well, it's postmodernism, but don't tell gamers that or they'll get all mad at you. But well, a bit rare there. The idea of let's take something very serious and real, like Luigi's on Wii at being the second player, or the distressing question of exactly who Bowser Jr.'s parents are, that kind of stuff. That all, you know, tends to get brought up, and you know, we do things like, hey, what if this little game for little kids was in fact a very serious adult text that needed to justify the absence of certain real world things. Like, you know, there's a clip from Family Guy, and I personally think this is the most devastating critique of this particular model of games journalism possible, in that Family Guy did it. There's this episode of Family Guy where they're watching cartoons. Sorry, they're watching Sesame Street. And Peter says, you know, how do we know that the Count's a vampire? Like, do we ever see him feed on someone? And Brian asks, are you asking at some point does Sesame Street have an episode where the Count Von Count kills someone and drinks their blood? And Peter's like, yeah. And Brian says, no, they've never done that. And that's it. This is just like pointing out how the question itself is just fundamentally very silly. And asking it is kind of horrible. Anyway, so one of the themes that you'll see in Mario Discourse is the addition of sexuality. Bowsette, a culture-wide phenomenon of overwhelmingly horny on main for the big dragon titty, was a fine example of this. Of people said, what if Bowser was in fact a hot, conventionally proportioned young woman who had just gigantic boobs? You know, that's funny and subversive. That's definitely why I'm sharing all this art of it, because it's so very funny and subversive, and not any other reason at all. Please don't analyze this or critique this. Anyway, so this whole idea of introducing sexuality into the Mario-verse is interesting to me because this game kind of knocks all of it into a cocked hat. Now, I want to keep talking about this sexuality and reproduction element, so that's why I'm standing still. Because once I start moving, this boss is going to happen, and this boss is a lot. So just bear with me for a moment. The thing is, in this game, we know that Yoshi can lay eggs that don't involve anyone else. They don't need to reproduce with these eggs. These eggs seem to be thrown around very casually and destructively. But also, we know that Mario and Luigi were delivered by a stork. Now, I am not actually an expert in reproductional biology, but I am pretty confident that the only animals in our world that sexually reproduce through a stork are other storks. Which suggests to me that one of the things that this game indicates is that the Mario universe is actually 100% completely free of what we consider sexuality. And therefore it is, in fact, an ace paradise freed from a lot of the tragic constraints and damages done by our pursuit of sex. Anyway, that's just a thought. Obviously we're going to ignore it because we all obviously want to see horny fan art of Mario characters, aside from, again, ace people who don't and are probably feeling quite alienated by the implication that they do, but, you know, where would we be in culture in general if we didn't completely ignore and treat ace people like trash? I mean, we might actually have a nice world where some people felt okay about who they were for a while. Man, imagine that. That'd be weird. Anyway, so this boss just ate us, and this is one of my favorite kind of check out what we can do with our amazing engine mode 7 guff kind of thing this game does, because there is no reason to do this boss battle like this, but I love that they do. This is the thing with Yoshi's Island in general. Like, there's so much stuff in this game that's just fascinatingly needless. Like, they could have just made a whole bunch of different, you know, Burdetta-style bosses, like, every time they do anything in a Mario universe. They could have, you know, little flying carpet thing. But no, in this one, they had me eaten by a frog, and now I need to successfully use that frog's lunch against that frog's uvula? Which also asks the question, do frogs have uvula? Anyway. And here we are, having survived and escaped the giant frog. Alright, so that's half an hour-ish. And I just want to say how much I love this game, how important this game is to my development as a person, and how happy every part of this game makes me. I only wanted to play a little bit of this game and not like drown you in a full hour-long Let's Play. Well, not even. If I could finish this game in an hour, I'd be a world record speedrunner. But I just wanted to share a little bit of this game I love and the things this game makes me think about. Thank you very much for coming along, and I hope you had fun. Bye.